My name is Thiago. I am from Brazil, and this is my salvation story. I was born and raised in Salvador, Bahia, northeast Brazil in the coast. I grew up in a Christian family. My parents were divorced. My dad, he was at that time, he was in the church. My mommy wasn't Christian at all. And my dad got involved in an extra relationship. He left us, he left my mom, my siblings, and I. And then what I do remember is like one day my dad calling me and my brothers and my sister to see him in a different place that not our house. And he explained the whole thing that he was not going to be living with us anymore. I think I was around 10, 12, and I didn't know how to process that. But the same time was the time that I was getting involved in a local church. Was a Methodist church, and I came to go to that church because of my friends. I used to play football on the streets throughout the whole day because back in Brazil, back in that day, like 20 years ago, we only go to school just for half days, like on the half day in the morning or half day in the afternoon. And I used to go half day in the morning with my friends and the whole afternoon because my mom was working and my dad was in a different town. We just playing football on the streets because I had my sister that she was the oldest and she was looking after us. But mainly was that we didn't have any technology at that time. It was more play football in the streets. And that's how I found the church, even though my dad was a Christian. Because when I was very young, like 4 or 5 years old, I do have vaguely memories of going to church. My dad used to go to the Assembly of God's church in Brazil, and especially in Salvador, Bahia. It's a very Pentecostal church. And then for me at that age, everything was just funny because I used to see people being moved on the spirit and I didn't have no clue about what it was, and it was just funny. That was a little bit of my context about being closer to a church. But as I was getting older, like 14, 15, I decided to follow Jesus. I was with my friends going to that Methodist church. Literally, I was like 5 minutes away from my mom's house. And then my friends was always, hey, Thiago, we should go to church. And then one thing that really marked my childhood as going to church, it was the Sunday mornings, because Sunday mornings in Brazil, mainly you have a Sunday Bible school. And then you have the Sunday Bible school. You have the first time having worship as a whole church, and then you go to your classroom. Then you have your teaching, and after the teaching, everyone gets together on the auditorium, and then we heard from the pastor, and then we sang a worship, and then we finish. That's a Sunday morning in any Brazilian local church. And then afternoon on a Sunday, you have evangelism. You go out at 3 o'clock and you go and do evangelism. And then on the evening, you have on normal Sunday services that it's happening on the evening. And basically that was my days in church growing up. At the same time I was going to church, I was living with my mom, and my mom wasn't Christian. And I believe that she was very offended by the word Christian, or for anything that was relating to Christian, for what my dad done to her, to us. He basically left us, and he was going to church. And then I don't know, I couldn't imagine the pain that she was living. But she managed to raise the three of us. She never had anything against me going to church, actually, because we grew up in a very dangerous neighborhood that we could have easily access to drugs. And then she saw that I was going to church with good friends that was giving me good influence, and as I was becoming a man, and I think she was okay with that. But growing up and see my mom, yes, definitely Christian wasn't something that she was happy about it, and I think it's because what happens to her and my dad. But yes, I grew up going to the Methodist church. I remember because I was going to the Methodist church, but I never at that point gave my life to Jesus. And the day when I decided to give my life to Jesus, I remember to calling my dad and said, "Hey dad, I have something to tell you." And he was like, "Yeah, yes, what's going on?" I was like, I decided to follow Jesus. I'm gonna baptize and then I gonna fully trust Jesus my life. And it's funny because the first thing he told me after I say that, he was like, "Have you heard about YWAM?" I was like, "What? YWAM?" It's like I have no clue about that. My daddy, he's so passionate about missions. He was a pastor before, but about 20 years ago he stopped pastoring. He's more a professor on the Assemblies of God Theologian Seminary in my region in Northeast in Brazil. Yeah, was hearing there, I was like, YWAM, what is that? The funny thing is, 2 years after I committed myself to Jesus, in that church, we had a YWAM team that came from different states to my hometown. Vaguely, very small people knew about that. And I didn't have no clue. And then we were there on a Sunday, and throughout the whole week on that time, they were teaching and they were preaching. And I remember on the last week when they were doing the talk on the Sunday evening, I was like, "Guys, I don't know who you are, but I just have the feeling that I want to be like you, but I don't know how to start it." And they told me everything about YWAM. It's that youth, stands to Youth with a Mission. And that was 2 years after I decided to baptize. I decided to get closer to the organization YWAM. And then I found out there is a mission school that you do. It's like about 6 months that you go to a location. Could be in Brazil, it could be anywhere around the world. And then I decided to do mine in a different state from where I was from. I did that in 2006, 2007. I graduated. I came back to YWAM, and then I've been calling a YWAMer because that's how we call people when they do the discipleship training school. That's the door for anybody that wants to join YWAM is to do the YWAM school that we call DTS, discipleship training school. And since 2007 I've been working with YWAM. Got married in YWAM. I found my wife in YWAM. I had my kids in YWAM. I've been missionarying for over 20 years. And today, my family, we serve in England. We serve our local church. And we trying to be obedient to the word of the Lord. That so far, what He has been given, the command to us as a family is to be in the UK and be a blessing to the local church and to be a blessing to our local missionary community. And has been a journey, but when you just look to the things you have in your hands, it's easily to get stuck because that's not actually the primary calling that God has given to my family and I. And we've been seeing and tasting so many the goodness of God about finance stuff that we're like, we can't do that. We don't have money to do that. But we actually see the provision come from the Lord. And that's been so encouraged as being a missionary in the UK and seeing that the way that the Lord has given to us to provide from people that never met us before to closest friends. It's such a blessing. I would say that hold on to the word of the Lord has given to you, because that you never fail in your life. I remember when we were in the process, my wife and I, we were back in Brazil in 2016. We're in the process to move to the UK, and the personnel team from YWAM here in Harpen, and they felt one day and they prayed over ours, and they actually sent an email with words of encouragement, with some Bible verse, and till this day, I have printed out that paper with those words of encouragement that anytime when I'm feel frustrated, when I'm feel, it's like, what I'm doing here, because that comes quite often, especially when you're not from here. when in English it could be a barrier for you to do your ministry. Those kind of thoughts come quite easily to you. And then my way to get hold onto that was having those words printed out. And then when I'm feeling that I'm not capable, I'm not enough, or I don't have enough, I look into that words, because that word was God's promises to me and my family. And we've been seeing those promises being fulfilled. I had like a green light from everyone, but I didn't have a green light from my mom. And I remember talking to my dad, and my dad just blessed me and said, I bless you to go, but there's one more thing. You need to talk to your mom, because even though you are grown up, you still live with your mom. So you need to ask for her blessing. I was like, oh yeah, I can do that. I came to my mom, I explained everything. And I remember my mom saying, no, I don't bless you. You're not going. I felt frustrated a little bit, but I respect my mom's decision. And I was like, okay, if it's not time for me to go, I'm not going. And then on that process, I was waiting for 1 year and a half for my mom come back to me and say, I love you and I wanted the best for you. And then I don't have anything against you to go. If you depend on me to go, I'll bless you. And then, yes, after my mom blessed me, it was 1 year and a half or 2 years, years after I have that missionary team on my church. I started to follow the process to go to a YWAM and to do my discipleship training school that we call DTS. And that's how I became missionary.
What changed your mom's mind, do you know?
I don't know. I never questioned her, because, and that came from my dad as well. My dad told me, if your mom is not blessing you, it's not time for you to go. Yeah, I felt that wasn't time to go. I was like, yes, my mom said no. Yeah, it's a no. Can't complain.
So, but is she a Christian now?
Uh, my mom, she passed away a year and 2 years ago. But before she passed, I had my dad calling me once, about a few months before she passing, and he was like, my parents were divorced for like over 30 years. My mom didn't came for my wedding because my dad was there. The anger that she holded on her heart because what my dad have done on the past was like, it was so strong, and it was looking like unforgettable. And then I remember my dad is calling me and say, we need to pray for your mom because she's not well. So I managed to be in one of the calls with my mom, with my dad and my siblings. And then a few months later, I remember my sister calling me and say, hey, mommy is in the ICU and dad wants to see her. My first reaction was like, he's crazy, because for the whole experience that we had before, I was like, no way she will allow my dad to see her. After that, my sister called me back and said, hey, I just spoke to mom, because my sister was the only one that was with my mom on the ICU. And then she told me, actually, mom agreed to see dad. When my sister told me that, I was like, that's something going on. Then a few weeks later, I had a call from the hospital, and then they wanted to talk to me because I was the only son that wasn't around her, because I'm in the UK. So they scheduled a WhatsApp call. I was be able to call to receive the call. I was be able to talk to my mom. I spoke to my mom. My wife spoke to my mom, and before we hang the call, I took a screenshot from the call, and that was the last time I spoke to my mom. I think 2 weeks or 3 weeks after that call, it was a Saturday evening. My phone calls. It's my dad, and then he explained that he was just right there, and my sister was there, my brother was there. She was at home. She was using oxygen to breathe to help her. but her lungs was compromised, but yeah, she passed at home. But the thing about my mom is, between my dad's visiting and the day my mom passing, she's been following Jesus for quite a while, like 1 year, but like not fully committed, I think. But the day when my dad visit my mom, my dad got so emotional that he can actually talk about it. My sister told me that the day when my dad went to see my mom asked my dad to lead her to Jesus in prayer. And she was asking for forgiveness to spend those all years with hatred on her heart towards my dad. And I don't have the full picture, but the way that my sister told me, I believe it was a reconciliation between my mom and my dad. And before she died, she was like, I believe in Jesus. She was Catholic, but I think a year before she passed, she was following Jesus. She was talking about Jesus. And she was like, do you know what? I'm going to talk about the Lord wherever I go. At the hospital, she was talking to the nurses. The days that when she came back home, she was talking to the neighbors. And yes, even for me as her own son, I couldn't believe that my mom one day could follow Jesus. But yeah, he did. He came closer to my mom. He made himself known to my mom, and my mom know him, and then he changed her life. And that's how my mom's life ended, with the Lord Jesus calling her home. Today I serve in a YWAM location in Harpenden, and we started serving in the media, just producing content for social media, taking care of the website. But now I oversee social media for YWAM. We kind of share content from different YWAM locations around the world. We work with live stream in our campus in Harpenden. Every Thursday we have a gathering that it's the local gathering from our campus that it's open for the public. We understand that social media and anything online, it's a mission field today, and then we use the online as a mission field to preach the gospel, to reach to young people if they want to do a discipleship training school, or if they want to be a missionary, or if they want to get involved into missions. We use quite often social media for that as well. YWAM, if it's for anyone or anybody that wants to get involved into missions, if you want to, the first question that you need to make to yourself is that really you, Lord? I think primarily it needs to come from the Lord to you. And if so, you have over probably 200 locations plus to choose where you can do your disciple traineeship school. We have so many YWAM locations in Brazil. We have so many locations in the UK. Anywhere around the world, you can check on YWAM social media platforms, Facebook, Instagram, probably TikTok. I'm too old for that. But definitely the young generation are using TikTok to reach the Gen Zs. But yes, it's to anyone that has the heart, passion about missions, or do you want to just experience mission? Yes.